CLIVE. Well, I first met this very talented broadcaster called Clive Robertson when I joined 6IX in Perth, Western Australia in 1968, and we had a long friendship from that point on. He was, of course, already broadcasting from 6IX, and I had heard of a job going there, which if I could get it, it would be my first capital city job, so it was a matter of getting some experience. And I then said, okay, I'll send a tape. I sent it to Mr. Hun, I think was the general manager at the time. And he wrote back after listening to it and said, well, look, it's a midnight to dawn gig and you can have it. He said, because she's going east. And I decided then I'd go west from 2KA in Katoomba in the Blue Mountains, where actually Clive was born. And I didn't know Clive, though. And so I went across, and unfortunately, somewhere in my little van with a young family, as I crossed the Nullarbor Plain, Mr. Hun had sent a telegram. Remember telegrams? Had sent a telegram to Katoomba to tell me that the woman who was hosting the Midnight to Dawn show changed her mind, withdrew her resignation, and so there was no job. But I didn't know, and so I bumped along on what was a lot of dirt road, and it was after the big wet, so there were detours around the detours. A horrific experience crossing the Nullarbor in that year. Went across there and the doors did eventually open. The general manager was apologetic, but eventually 6IX did open those doors wide enough for me to find announcing work there. And I became the network announcer, they called it. It was a matter of linking programs on the statewide network. And somehow, I don't know really how, I got my tongue around Aboriginal place names, and I was merrily working from a studio adjacent to the main broadcasting studio. And through the glass, I watched this bespectacled young announcer, and he seemed as interested in what I was doing in the adjacent booth as he was doing his show. I think it was an afternoon program. And so there it was. He was this young man with jet black hair and the spectacles, and his name was Clive Robertson. At the end of our respective shifts, I got to know him. He was very bright and keenly interested in everything that was going on, including a lunatic who just crossed the remote Nullarbor Plain with a young family on board. Well, we then moved our tiny family to a first-floor apartment in a small block of units in York Street in the inner-city suburb of Subiaco. And during this period, I saw a fair bit of Clive. We talked a lot at the station, and I also visited his family home at Mount Lawley. And he always impressed me with his quick intellect and his quiet enthusiasm. But there was little sign then of the wicked wit that would one day make him a household name right throughout Australia. I regarded Clive as a genuine friend from the beginning, and we spoke freely about life and the business in which we found ourselves. Our backgrounds were somewhat similar. He'd been born at Katoomba, where his father, a committed Christian, was a solicitor. His mother struggled on a tight budget to raise 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. And years later, I visited 2 places where he'd once lived. There was the home at Katoomba, and the formerly family home at Lawson, where he'd gone to the local school to be teased by Miss Noonan, who, according to Clive, tormented rather than taught her little charges. He made constant references to her in many of his programs. The owners of the Lawson home had already known that Clive had once lived in the house, and so they invited us inside. Clive has a deeply sensitive side, unseen by most of his detractors, and I watched and listened to him at his unrestrained expressions of joy as he recognised every corner of the house that had formed the last childhood memories of New South Wales for him before the family moved far away to Western Australia in 1957. Perth was where his grandfather had helped to establish the West Farmers Company. Like me, Clive had worked on telephone systems as one of his early jobs. Unlike me, he had worked on a farm and even driven a steam locomotive while employed by WA Railways for a short time. Getting into radio for him was just like something else to try. Both of us had served our radio apprenticeship in the bush. On October 14, 1968, Perth shook violently under the force of one of Australia's strongest earthquakes. The quake, registering 6.9 on the Richter scale, tore apart the country town of Meckering to the east of Perth and sent many Perth residents running into the streets as the city's church steeples swayed wildly and buildings wobbled precariously over pedestrians. Well, it was the shake-up that I needed. I talked with Clive about leaving to pursue my career back east, and he was totally supportive. He didn't believe Perth radio was ever going to satisfy my broadcasting ambitions. I kept going back to the bush towns of Australia, travelling through many of them with Clive Robertson on a few photographic expeditions. We were both struck by the beauty and simplicity of rural Australia, but the gems of conversation are here, I hope, for you all to enjoy.
This is the last time we'll see this car in this condition. Leslie's about to drive Brogan. Yeah. I'm Alan Johnson. What do I think? We're now approaching some very large sheep, Les. What would these be? Merino? Cross merino?
They look like bogan sheep.
Bogan sheep.
Yeah, bogan sheep.
And apparently if you run into them, they're really cross. So there you are, the cattle on the side of the road. Les has pretty well got the car going properly. Oh, you're going to fifth, are we again?
No, just third now.
Third now, right.
Wouldn't like to go for higher.
Any moment we're going to go to fifth. No, you're going to fourth?
Fourth, yes.
Right, this is quite exciting.
Where did you say fifth was again?
Up to the right there.
Oh, good.
There you are.
It's got to.
On you, Les. Well done. Thank you. One of the banes of travelling around Australia, or indeed any other large continent, are the proliferation of people who, having retired, are going on their dream holiday with a caravan. The wife says, "Ignore them, dear, we've earned this holiday." Meanwhile, like cholesterol in the bloodstream, they screw up the highways and we get very angry. Thank you. We did a calculation, Les, and there are 38 tyres on this road train. We're at Cobar. 38. And Les said, "How does he check the tyre pressure?" And I said, "That's why he's got boots. He goes round and boots them." And how appropriate is this man's little thing on the front? That's a difficult job. That's a difficult job. We're the other side of Cobar now, and there's rain ahead. Les is doing 180 kilometres per hour. And she said, "It's not my bloody car, what's it matter?" And I kind of disagree with him. The rain, look at that. Coming straight down as we look towards Wilcannia. At this rate, we should probably overshoot and end up in Adelaide, but still, it's a nice thought. It's just wonderful. It's just a lovely day here. It's a pity we're going to die. Oh, it is raining, a bit of rain, yes.
Smells good.
Yeah. And it's just lovely and desolate out here. Les is just doing 140 in my car in 110 zone, just in case the coroner wants to view this tape.
Can you smell the rain now?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful.
Well, it's on the road, isn't it?
That's wide.
Yes. And
I think it's related.
Lovely out here. We're going to have some food soon. And here's a very large sheep, Les. That's one of the largest sheep I've seen. These are very big sheep, aren't they, Les?
Extraordinary. Good wool, though.
Yeah. I think there's a British sheep. It's a cross.
Oh, I see.
Cross-hatch. Cross-match.
They almost crossed in front of us, Clark.
They did. Good thing you weren't doing 200, Les.
That's right. This is little roadside diner, I think they call this place. And they sell great pies. This is 160 kilometres outside of Cobar. Well, no, that's not correct. It's 161.5. The gentleman back in Cobar who misdirected us. Which makes the convenience a little inconvenient.
Thank you. 2 to you.
2 to you.
Nice and easy, greatest hits and memories. Talking Sydney. 2 to you.
Talking Sydney.
very sad. They've had race riots here and trouble with the police, as you know. See White Cliffs? See, let's go ahead, White Cliffs. We go an Indy down here. So I haven't. Well, this is going to be the Darling. It is the Darling. So the bank. Oh, that was the road. That was the Burke Road. That was the one.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about to go to work.
Now here's the old bridge they've got here. Corrugated iron ones. Look at all these lovely buildings. I won't drive the next street. Isomore sandstone up here. On the left here, but the whatever it is. X whatever it is. And on the right you've got the school, lovely school there, look. The police station, courthouse. This place was very important in the days when they used the river for transporting things.
Yes.
It looks like the back of the child. Look at that.
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, it's intriguing. It does look like the back of the jail.
Yes, that's the jail, isn't it? That's nice. That's the one I was talking about. Yeah. Nearly 10.
Yeah.
8. This is it. This is the outback. At last we have reached the outback. Less than an hour to go, Liz. These are?
These are apples from Bilpin in New South Wales.
Yes.
And they tell me they can't take them any further. Damn them.
You see? Thank you for stopping, it says. Right. Hold on, Les. Hold on. Les? Oh, Les, we missed all that. Thanks, Les.
They're down there.
And why is all this? Because you can't take these things into South Australia because they breed and produce enormous apples.
But we're not going into South Australia yet. Anyway.
No, whose business is theirs?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed.
Thanks, Les. You close the boot lid? Yeah. Les is now doing the very complex job of closing the boot lid without, reshaping the car. No, he does it properly. Broken hill there.
Sure.
Broken hill. Will it ever be fixed? Here we are, we've arrived. After 3 weeks of wandering in the desert, we've arrived